Vorondax, the Red Terror. Long ago, in the volcanic heart of the Crimson Peaks, a great red dragon named Vorondax carved his lair. His name became synonymous with greed and wrath, and his legend was written in the flames of destruction he left behind. To mortals, he was simply known as the Red Terror, a creature of boundless avarice whose hatred for dwarves was as fiery as his breath. Vorondax was hatched in a clutch of wormlings amidst molten rock, the child of two powerful red dragons who reigned over the region. From the beginning, Vorondax's obsession with gold and precious metals set him apart even among his kind. Unlike others who sought treasure for power or status, Vorondax viewed wealth as an extension of himself. Every coin, jewel, and ingot of gold he hoarded was a piece of his identity. To steal from him was to wound his very soul. As he grew, so did his hoard and his hunger. Villages near the Crimson Peaks were razed, their treasures seized, their survivors scattered. Yet it was the dwarves of the mountain clans, with their rich mines and mastery of gold craft, who became his greatest obsession. To Vorondax, dwarves represented a threat. They dared to claim what he believed was rightfully his. The first encounter between Vorondax and the dwarves of Clan Orndral ended in catastrophe. The dwarves, unwilling to part with the riches of their ancestral mines, fortified their mountain stronghold and prepared for war. But Vorondax was no ordinary foe. He descended upon their halls with the fury of a volcanic eruption, his fiery breath melting gates and his claws carving through stone. The stronghold fell, his treasure consumed by the dragon's insatiable greed. From that day forward, Vorondax declared war on all dwarves. He razed their outposts, ambushed their caravans, and torched their fortresses. In his eyes, the dwarves were interlopers, thieves who dared to claim the wealth of the mountains that should have been his alone. He grew to revel in their suffering, seeing each victory as both a conquest and a personal vindication. Vorondax's hoard became infamous, a dazzling mountain of gold, jewels, and enchanted artifacts. Yet his attachment to it was far more than physical. The dragon's greed had twisted into something dark and unnatural, a curse that bound his soul to his treasure. Legends whispered that Vorondax could sense the presence of gold anywhere within 100 miles, and that any who dared to steal from his hoard would be hunted relentlessly, no matter how far they fled. But the curse worked both ways. As his hoard grew, so did his paranoia. Vorondax became increasingly reclusive, retreating deeper into his volcanic lair and guarding his treasure with layers of traps, enchantments, and molten rivers. He trusted no one, not even the lesser dragons who occasionally sought his alliance. Over time, his obsession began to consume him, warping his mind and feeding his hatred. Despite their losses, the dwarves refused to yield. Clan Orndral's survivors united with other mountain clans, forging alliances and creating weapons specifically to combat the Red Terror. Among these was Thrandar's hammer, a legendary weapon imbued with the strength of the mountain and enchanted to shatter dragon scales. The dwarves also turned to their gods, beseeching them for protection and guidance. In response, the deity Moradin gifted them with a holy artifact known as the Anvil of Atonement, said to weaken the dragon's fiery breath. Armed with these tools and bolstered by their unbreakable resolve, the dwarves launched a crusade to reclaim their ancestral lands and end Vorondax's tyranny. The war between Vorondax and the dwarves continues to this day, a saga of blood, fire, and unyielding determination. Though centuries have passed, ruined fortresses and scorched earth, serving as grim reminders of the conflict. Vorondax, now ancient and immense, has grown more dangerous than ever. His hatred for the dwarves burns brighter than his flames, and his horde has reached unimaginable proportions. Yet whispers persist that his paranoia is his greatest weakness. Some believe that the curse of his avarice will one day drive him mad, leaving him vulnerable to his enemies. Others claim that the dwarves have uncovered a